Hi everyone, welcome to Pondering God. My name is Ron Bay Jr. and today's episode is titled A Futile Life. So the key verse I want to read here to start off my thoughts has come from Mark chapter 8, verses 36 and 37. This is Jesus speaking. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and forfeit his soul? For what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Now it gets serious. We're talking about eternity. So I guess the question I have for you and for me and for everyone else is, do any of us learn from the mistakes of others? I would like to think we do, or at least we should learn from the mistakes of others, or at least we can. But I'm not so sure. In my life, even though I've observed plenty of mistakes made by others, it seems I've only learned from my own, the painful way. How many of us growing up heard repeated admonitions from our fathers and mothers, and yet, rather than listen to their advice, we went ahead and did whatever it was they counseled us against? The Bible is full of examples, both good and bad, of human beings living life. These stories are written down for our instruction. But in how many of these examples do we heed the warnings and change our path? Or do we just repeat the same mistakes over and over? After all, we're only human, right? Sunday's message was titled Solomon, Wealth, Wisdom, and a Worthless Life. King Solomon had it all: wealth, pleasure, power, and yet considered all he had attained as vanity, a striving after wind. Of all the people who have ever lived, with Solomon being the wisest, should we not learn from his life? What if you were a young man on an upward career path in the financial sector and you had a chance to tutor under Warren Buffett? Would you listen to what he had to say? Would you do the things he instructed? Would you not do the things he warned against? How many books written by so many experts in life have been read and followed for their seemingly sound advice? And yet, do we learn from Solomon's warnings and admonitions? And if we don't, why? As the preacher said during the message, Solomon started off life well. Son of King David, Solomon was instructed by God to ask for whatever he wished, and it would be granted. Seemingly already wise, Solomon asked for wisdom, and was not only given wisdom more than any man before, but was also given wealth, power, and all the trappings that go along with it. Solomon was also promised a bright future. So from 1 Kings chapter 9, verses 4 and 5, here's what the Lord said. As for you, if you will walk before me as your father David walked, with integrity of heart and uprightness, doing according to all that I have commanded you, and will keep my statutes and my ordinances, then I will establish the throne of your kingdom over Israel forever, just as I promised to your father David, saying, you shall not lack a man on the throne of Israel. So then we get to the but. The next verse starts out, but, or however, if you or your sons indeed turn away from following me, and do not keep my commandments and my statutes which I have set before you, and you go and serve other gods and worship them, I think we could figure out the rest. Things will not go as promised or end up well. Solomon later wrote Ecclesiastes as a testament to what went wrong, but it took him a lifetime of reflection to figure it out. Chapter 10 of 1 Kings describes Solomon's wealth, and it's so fantastic we can hardly imagine it. Here it goes. So King Solomon became greater than all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom. Gold, silver, ships, horses, chariots. He had an abundance of everything considered of value. Chapter 11 tells of Solomon's 700 wives, an indication that although wise, he lacked common sense, and 300 concubines, and how these wives turned his heart away after other gods, something Solomon had been warned against by God, but which he ignored. With all of his wealth, splendor, and pleasure, Solomon found it all to be worthless. Here's what he wrote about all of his accomplishments in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verses 4 through 10. I enlarged my works, I built houses for myself, I planted vineyards for myself, I made gardens and parks for myself, and I planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made ponds of water for myself from which to irrigate a forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves, and I had homeborn slaves. Also I possess flocks and herds larger than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. Also I collected for myself, there's a key word I keep hearing here, myself. I collected for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I provided for myself male and female singers and the pleasures of men, many concubines. Then I became great and increased more than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also stood by me. All that my eyes desired, I did not refuse them. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart was pleased because of all my labor, and this was my reward for all my labor. And then he summed it up with these words. Thus I consider all my activities, which my hands had done, and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was vanity and striving after wind, and there was no profit under the sun. So back to my original question. Why don't we learn from Solomon's mistakes? Maybe his life was so fantastical that we have trouble relating. We tell ourselves that we're not rich like him, and we certainly don't have 700 wives and 300 concubines, so his example doesn't apply to us. But is our thinking flawed? Can our lives replicate the same mistakes of Solomon? Sure they can. If we believe the lies of Satan, that all the wealth and pleasure and the things of this life can satisfy the soul, they can't. So why did we pursue them? Solomon was presented with the same temptation that Satan presented to Jesus, from Matthew chapter 4, verses 8 and 9. Again, the devil took him, Jesus, to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And he said to him, all these things will I give to you if you will fall down and worship me. Jesus recognized the trap and the lie, making him much wiser than Solomon. Do you recognize it? In his old age, Solomon realized the mistakes he had made throughout his life. He realized that all he had accumulated was only vanity. He summed it up in the last chapter of Ecclesiastes thus: the conclusion, when all has been heard, is, fear God and keep his commandments, because this applies to every person. And to answer Jesus' question from Mark, it profits a man nothing to gain the whole world. So in conclusion, what are you pursuing and what is your soul worth? So there you have it. Another episode of Pondering God. Consider those words, and I appreciate you listening. If you'd like more of these, go down to the button below the video and hit subscribe, and you'll get future videos in the future. So thank you once again, and everyone have a great day.